All right.
That didn't sound
So
like you at all, Les.
I know
It doesn't.
it's okay, but
Yes, why are we meeting?
why are we meeting? Thanks. Well, appreciate your dedication to the agenda. So, first of all, for everybody who's not here, thank you. And for those of you who are here too, thank you for tuning in to watch this or jumping into this call. Very much appreciate it. Tonight is there was a couple of things we want to talk about, and it has to do with the fact that there are certain things happening between now and the end of the year that are going to create opportunities for more people to play games on Sunday nights or on the weekends online, as part of what we've been doing with this sort of like some of us call late night game night and some people call less is folly, that kind of thing. So for those of you who don't know, uh we have been playing online games on Sunday nights or various points during the weekend, on and off. And I looked earlier for the last 13 years. It has been a wild ride from start to finish, but we've really got a handle on how to do this. People are having a great time. Our problem historically has been the fact that we have oftentimes too many players for the games that we have to offer, and so there's a lot of people who want to play, and there's a lot of people who want to join in, but oftentimes there's not as many slots. Those of you who've played D&D before probably know or are aware that generally speaking, the sweet spot for players versus for an individual game is usually around 5 to 6, but in some cases we have had 7, 8, sometimes even more players, and that tends to cause some problems. It slows down the game. Combat takes longer. It takes longer for people to get their individual turns, and it's just not oftentimes as fun or enjoyable as a experience as it could be. So what we're doing is we're meeting tonight to talk about some things that are going to be taking place in the relatively near future that create an opportunity for us to have more games, new DMs running different games, and opportunities for players who have never had an opportunity to play before with us to jump into games and have a great experience and play on Sunday evenings like we do. And part of what has been has put that in play is the fact that the games that I'm running 4 games right now, and 3 of those games will be coming to fruition, coming to an end between now and the end of the year, and that creates certain kinds of opportunities. So I should also mention that Mike Phillips and Don Muni, who are both on this call, have also been DMing games on Sunday nights, Monday nights for the past several years, and enjoying having a great time with that as well. So because of the things that have been happening with my games and they're coming to fruition, that creates an opportunity for all of us. And what we decided to do, Mike and Don and I got together and started talking about the ideas. How do we maximize the amount of games that we can play while still maintaining as much fun as we can for everybody who plays? And so, from my point of view, what I'll be doing is I'll have 3 campaigns coming to an end out of 4, one that will continue on for the frankly foreseeable future. There's a lot of room to run there. And what I'll be doing is I'll be starting a new campaign, and I will be reducing the number of campaigns that I'm doing from 4 to 2, but I'll be doing those campaigns twice a month. So there'll be 2 game nights, 2 Sunday nights in which people who are in either of those games will be able to play. And that seems like a really nice sort of cadence. Twice a month is good. Once a month was a little bit loose. It's, you had to take time to sort of refigure out what was going on in the game that you played a month ago. And if you happen to miss a night, then it's 2 months, and that's a long time in between games. So we're thinking twice a month for those games would be great. That said, Don and Mike also are looking to take the opportunity to expand the number of times a month that they run their games. So right now they're running their games once a month. Now, as we go forward into the turn of the year, we're going to see them increase the cadence of their own games to twice a month to better improve the experience for their players as well. Because of this, we had an idea, and I have to give credit where it's due. It was Mike's idea that maybe it would be cool if we got new people to run games, new DMs to run games of their own design of the rule sets, maybe not even Dungeons and Dragons, maybe different kinds of games. That would be cool, and that would give an opportunity for those people who are on our email every week, or on those weeks that I send it, that are on that email that have expressed interest in playing a role-playing game online. But for whatever reason, have not had the opportunity, have not had the time, have not been able to find an open slot in a game, and just simply haven't been able to capitalize on that interest. By asking, so we went and we asked some people whether or not they would be willing to run games coming here in the fall, and several people rose to the occasion. And those people are at least half of them are here right now. So first, I want to introduce Matt Meadow, who is on the iPhone 12 Pro there, and is currently in Cincinnati. Wave to the nice people, Matt. Great, that's perfect. This is no indication. His ability to wave to people is no indication of his quality as a DM. So don't take that into
They're not nice people either. So,
and then also Doug Kaufman, who is a longtime DM. He's run many games and is going to be running a game as well in the fall. We also have two other people who will be joining us hopefully soon. Tom Vilot, who will be running a game, and Eric. Eric, whose last name escapes me at this point. I can't believe I'm failing on Eric's name. But Eric, who
call him Wooden Spoon.
I feel terrible. Eric, when you see this, I apologize. I can't believe I forgot your last name. Borland, Eric Borland.
Borland, yeah.
So he will be, he's expressed interest in running a game, right? So that creates an environment where we have something really interesting happen. In that, we're going to have the games that I'm running, which might be able to accommodate additional players. We got Mike and Don, who are going to be continuing on with the games they're running and may be able to accommodate additional players. And then we have 4 new DMs who are all going to be running different games, who are looking forward to the opportunity with playing with new people, playing with veteran gamers, and in general, just making it so that more people who are on our mailing list every week get an opportunity to play in a game on Sundays. And so we think that's a great idea. And so Mike and Don and I put it into play. And this call tonight is the result. So if you're watching this on YouTube or anything like that, here's the value proposition to you. We're going to have 4 new DMs and some otherwise open slots. If you've been waiting for an opportunity to play in one of these games, to play this game, now's your chance. And right now, what we're looking at, I don't know exactly when this all will turn. I was talking with Mike about it the other day. I was saying October. He was saying the end of the year, but sometime between now and New Year's Eve, the likelihood is that this will be enacted. So it's not something that you have to start next week. It's not something that you have to start tomorrow or even next month. There'll be time for those of you who are a little bit reluctant to sort of jump in, who want a little bit of time to sort of familiarize yourself with how the game works, how the tools that we use online work, and all of those things. You'll have that time, and you'll have resources, right? So I've sent out a couple of emails. Mike and Don and I and the new DMs have all said that they're very much willing to help new players sort of figure out how to play this game, these games. And I'm here to tell you, it may look complicated at first, but it really is quite easy and accessible. And once you've had a moment to sort of familiarize yourselves with the online tools, which is probably the most difficult part, and to go through some of the ideas of how do you create a character and what are the options that you have and how do you use your skills and powers in certain ways, I think you'll find that not only is it quite easy and accessible, but it's also an immense amount of fun. The people that you're looking at on this Zoom call here probably have close to 500 years of experience in these games. Collectively. So yeah. We can help, and we have resources. We have materials. We can walk you through the tools. We can help you with problems. We can help make you comfortable with the idea of starting and playing in these games. We can make problems. We can, but we can help solve them. And I just want to make sure that there are a lot of people here that are available to you to help you get involved in the greatest games on earth. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Mike Phillips to talk a little bit about the new schedule and what's sort of happening and sort of flesh out the sort of things that I touched on here in a moment ago. I'm going to share my screen so you can see that schedule, and Mike's going to tell us a little bit about how this came to fruition and what our idea is.
Thanks, Les.
Mm-hmm.
Move my things around so I can see the schedule. Okay.
Can you see that?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
So kind of like what Les said, we came up with this. We started talking about, once his campaigns came to an end, how we were going to change, what we were going to do. And one of the things we got was a lot of feedback from a lot of our players was that once a month just wasn't enough. And so that's why we came up with trying to make everything twice a month just to make it consistent. That did add some complexities to a schedule because we had certain people that were in certain games and we had some that were going away. And so we came up with a schedule as our best stab at keeping people playing the games that we're playing and allowing people to play more. So if you look on the left side, it shows the 4 campaigns that Les had: A Team, B Team, Traveler, and the Quarantine and the Classics. And then on opposite schedules, at the bottom, you see the games that Donna and I were running, Bother Basement and Iron Fang. And so obviously there was a scheduling issues between, obviously we can't have players playing in the same campaign on the same night. So if you look to the right side, this is what we've come up with that allows all the campaigns to go to 2 nights. And it allows people to still play in the campaigns they were in. And we've also tweaked this. So right now we've pretty much been mostly a Pathfinder 1 group. Now, obviously we had a D&D 5 in there and a Traveler. And we actually had 1 PF2 in there. We're trying to make this to where going forward, it's mostly Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2. And we've tried to make it to where if people want to join these existing campaigns, there's always a Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2 going on each Sunday night. So if you look on the right-hand side, you've got B Team that Les is going to be doing on the 1st and 3rd Sundays. And then 2nd and 4th Sundays is going to be his new campaign, which he'll talk more about later. And then opposite schedule that Don and I were doing, Don's taking the 1st and 3rd Sundays, and then I'll be taking the 2nd and 4th. And like I said, this kind of just spells out all the different people, shows the people are in each game. Just as our way to count. I mean, we had talked about the sweet spot for games is about 5 to 6 players. If we have fewer than 5, it gets to be a point where if just one person misses or has vacation or whatever, it's almost a cancel event. Whereas if you have at least 5 and 6, then you can handle the occasional 1 or 2 people missing and still be able to play. But if you go over that probably about 6 sweet spot, then like Les said, you get to the point where turns take forever. It's, you can go do your taxes between, combat rounds. So, and that's not fun for anybody. So like I said, we really try to go towards that 5 to 6 sweet spot. And as you can see on the right-hand side, everything is either 5 or 6, whereas Les's A Team, we had 7 players that were playing. So we were a little bit over that, but we still had fun. But yeah, there was some times where some of the combats went a little slow. So, but like I said, this is the new system. We wanted to get this out so everyone could see it. And that way, as the new DMs are starting to plan if they're playing, when they're playing, how many times they're playing, all this stuff, they've got this to work around and they can see, who's available for what days or, who's gaming when.
Great. Okay. So then there was also a problem, in that as Mike was putting this together, he realized that certain people who are already playing in games might find that they weren't playing in games anymore. So I don't know, Mike, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah.
How we
Matt was one of them. Matt was in 2 campaigns before, and both of his campaigns are going away. I'm pretty sure this has to do with Matt. I bet it's Matt's fault.
It's Matt's fault. Yeah, basically.
No.
It's because he's not willing to dial in.
Right. Yeah, he's so inaccessible. So I put this list down here at the bottom with the blue, green, and red. Blue means you're playing more nights than you were before. So wanted to make sure most people would be okay with that, but just in case you're not, just make you aware of that. The green means you're playing the same amount of nights you were before, and red means you're playing less than you were before. So of the existing players, Dan and Matt were the two that lost game nights. So again, this new schedule we're putting up is showing if they wanted to join one, which Matt might be DMing, so that might be, that might be his schedule. But this schedule that's right above here is for those players, both the new ones and both Matt and Dan, in case they want to add a campaign, they can see which nights their campaign's already playing in, and they know what are their other two options as far as joining a different campaign.
So among the three of us, so all three of us, both Mike, Don, and I, are all continuing on with games that we're already running. In my case, it is B Team, The War of the Burning Sky, which we're playing, and frankly, I think we're on book 4 of 12 or some crazy number like that. So we've got several years worth of gaming there, even at 2 nights a month. I know that Don is running. Well, technically, it's Abomination Vaults, but he's referred to it. It's a little nicer as the Bother Basement. So they're playing that, and then. Mike is running the Iron Fang Invasion, which is another classic Paizo adventure path. So a lot of Paizo material and Pathfinder material being played here. But also, I'll be starting a brand new campaign, Curse, as it says here, which basically is I'm planning on running Curse of Strahd, the classic 2nd edition and 5th edition series of adventures. But I'll be doing that. I'll be converting it to Pathfinder 2nd edition for the purposes of this game. So when we talk, and let me just, while we're talking about that, we talk a lot about this edition or that edition, 5th or D&D this or Pathfinder. Don, real quick, would you just help those people who have never played this game before and only know it as Dungeons and Dragons? Can you give them a little quick sort of rundown about the kind of things that we're talking about? What's the difference between Pathfinder and D&D, that kind of thing?
So the only people who have no idea are those that are going to be watching this afterwards. Everyone
Correct.
on this meeting is familiar with it. And Mike mentioned that we pretty much work on Pathfinder stuff, but the granddaddy of all of these games is Dungeons and Dragons. And I believe Doug is going to run a D&D campaign. So we will be having Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition represented. Whenever anyone talks about Dungeons and Dragons, it could mean any RPG, tabletop RPG. Dungeons and Dragons is just the one that's been around the longest, most known. The name recognition is definitely there. A tabletop role-playing game, RPG, is an RPG regardless of what system. They have very similar mechanics. If you know one, you can learn all the others relatively quickly. But they do have distinct properties. So Pathfinder 1 first edition is really a continuation of D&D 3.5. So after Hasbro had their run on 3.5, they came out with 4, and now they're at rendition 5. They're actually coming out with a new one, but we're going to talk about 5th edition. You've got your normal character stats, your classes, whether you're a wizard, fighter, barbarian, thief, cleric, different races, human, elf, dwarf, orc. You can be anything. Actually, technically, you can be pretty much any race in any of these games now. They've been around enough. They've opened it up enough. If you've got a build you want to try, each system can handle it. Now, Pathfinder First Edition, it's heavily customizable with feats, skills. You pick your different spells if you're a spellcaster. But it is probably more customizable than others. It's really a number crunchy one. 5e, D&D 5e and Pathfinder 2 are much easily much more accessible to beginning players. It's not as number crunchy, at least is what I have found. Um, the um, some people that have played Pathfinder 1E prefer it because they want to do the min max number crunchy stuff. Build a guy that is absolutely awesome at one thing and may suck at other things. 5e, you can kind of do that, not quite to the extent, but pretty much, right, Doug?
Well, yeah,
feats aren't automatic. You choose a feat
that's
rather
right.
than
Feats. Yeah, so a lot of the stuff in 5e is based on backgrounds. You have to spend a lot more time doing your backstory, because that builds up there are a lot of benefits for as the character advances. So,
and then 2e 2e has a couple of interesting mechanics to it. The 3-action mechanic, which is the one thing that, regardless of what
in the
system
chat, where
you prefer,
eventually I will be pitching a.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
The one thing that people prefer about 2e is the 3-action economy. It is very difficult to build a bad character in 2e, but there's not an easy way of building a character that blows everyone else out of the water. That's actually not a bad thing, because second edition, one of the things they talk about second edition that's hard with Pathfinder first edition and D&D 5 is when you get to be 10th level in both D&D 5e and Pathfinder 1, you're pretty much a demigod and you walk through things. The challenges are very hard for DMs. You can throw added creatures in there to slow them down and everything, but the player characters are very overpowered. 2e scales differently, and the creatures scale up with them. It makes everything a challenge regardless of what level they are. So that's kind of the 3 different systems. Now the one I am GMing is Abomination Vault. It's a Pathfinder second edition. It is their ultimate classic dungeon crawl. You pretty much get a level for each level of the dungeon you go down. There's 10 levels. After that, we'll find something else, but they're only just now starting level 2. So we've got a long way to go before we finish Abomination Vault. I've gotten good feedback with it. The one drawback we have had, which has been mentioned here, is that once a month just isn't enough to stay in character. Remember what went on last time. Going twice a month will really help that. Okay. Next up is the game I play in the future will be Mike's campaign, Iron Fang. Mike, I'm going to let you talk about that one.
Okay. So I DM Iron Fang, and it's a classic dungeon crawl with a little more outdoorsy type stuff than a typical campaign. So right now my group is in book 2 of a 6-book adventure path. So what they've done so far is the campaign started off with a cozy little town, farming town, middle of nowhere. They kind of wake up one night to the place being invaded by a bunch of hobgoblins, half-orcs, that kind of stuff. And so it's very much been, ever since they've started, a controlled retreat as they're overwhelmed. And then it turned into okay, we've got a few people that we've helped survive from the town. Let's see if we can survive in the forest and figure out what's going on, and then take the fight back to them. And so that's kind of the gist of where the whole campaign will go. But like I said, right now we're in book 2, and they're all about, you guys are level 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're level 6 right now. So they're not quite to the level 10 demigod status that I will take the challenge of making sure you guys do not get Howard.
I'm close.
It's been challenging so far. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, so to this stage, like I said, right now they're kind of heavy. They've got some refugees hanging out in a cave. They've been basically living in a forest, trying to make nice with the forest people and try to find allies. And so, I mean, they've already met some giants, some owlbears, a green dragon. Like I said, they've already had some interesting encounters and interesting ways they've solved issues. So they've already broke my game a few times that I had to adapt to, but I'm up for the challenge. So I think with that, that's me and Don. So I'm going to turn Les. You've got 2 campaigns. Do you want to?
I do. So I have one campaign that will continue and another that I'm starting fresh. So the one I'm continuing is generally referred to as B Team. This is a campaign called The War of the Burning Sky. It is a campaign that revolves around the attempted takeover of an entire region of the southern continent by an aggressive invading force. And the characters are sort of defenders, guerrilla war experts, politicians, diplomats who are trying to assist their own city and the cities of the region that are under attack in repelling this invading force. So that's in one. I think we are now in book 4 of that particular series of adventures out of 12. So we're just sort of maybe approaching a third of the way through. How long we've been playing B Team? Probably 2 years more. So 2.5 years. So it's been going on a while. We've got plenty of room to run yet. For the new campaign, I'm going to be running Curse of Strahd for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So Curse of Strahd, this is a classic adventure of the old school. It was first written, I believe, by the same people who did the Dragonlance novels back in the 90s. For the 2nd edition of Dungeons and Dragons, it was redone for 5th edition and renamed. The original Curse of Strahd was referred to as Ravenloft, referring to the region, and then the new one is referred to as Curse of Strahd. It is considered by many to be one of the classic adventures and adventure campaigns of Dungeons and Dragons in general. And so this is sort of a legacy of the Quarantine with the Classics, where we were playing in a variety of old school D&D adventures from the 80s and 90s, and we that were converted into 5th edition for the purposes of that game. So that's the game I'm going to be running. It has a real sort of gothic horror flair to it, which will be played up. So those are the campaigns I'm going to be running. And now I want to introduce Tom Vilot and Eric Borland, who, in addition to Doug and Matt, are going to be our new DMs at the end of this year. And what I'd like to do, guys, is if you have a moment, just take a couple of seconds, tell people a little bit about yourself, how long you've been playing, and what game you're going to be running this fall. Doug, you want to go ahead and start?
Well, I've been playing D&D since 1976, and I've DM'd a couple of times, but most of that has been as a player. So I've been going through the Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition all the way through where we are right now in Bob's Death campaign, which he's switched over to Pathfinder 1, but ended up going for D&D 3.5. So I've had all kinds. I've got files of different characters. A turn on the other side of the screen it's just something I've wanted to do, So I expect to have fun with it. There is some confusion about exactly what adventure that I'm going to be doing, because if Les, you're going to be doing the Curse of Strahd, then because remember we were talking about I might be doing that one as well. Mm-hmm. However, I've got if I weren't to do the Curse of Strahd, I'd be doing Tales from Waterdeep, Tales from Waterdeep, it's an urban setting, and then from there are adventures out and about, and there's certain rules and regs that have to play out in the city of Waterdeep, but it's just a lot of stuff that's going on with the different factions, joining different gangs. I mean, I've run it before, and so it's a hoot. So a lot of where the players can say, "Oh, well, what's that over there?" And I'm like, "Okay," and we just move in that direction. So it gives a lot of opportunity for the individual players or the party to decide what they're gonna do next. There's not only just one path that has to go through there. So. But Mists of Barovia and the Curse of Strahd is just that is also it's not only is that a dungeon crawl, but that's an agrarial agricultural area. That's the adventures that are far and relatively superfluous. Not superfluous, but I feel like Biden the other night. Yeah, a lot of things going on in that campaign as well.
Okay, great. That's awesome. I think that's going to be very interesting. Just to reiterate, Doug will be running in the 5th edition DA,
That's right.
the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons. So those of you who are interested in starting in that area, you might be sort of getting a good structural relationship with the classic rule set. Might be interested in gaming with Doug.
Yeah.
Next, I'd like to introduce everybody to Eric Borland. Eric has joined us and has expressed he's been a player with us for many years and always has some great characters. I think Storm, his character in Quarantine with the Classics, is one of the party favorites. And Eric, please take a moment and tell us about yourself and what game you're thinking about running this fall.
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Great. All right, good. I've played D&D starting with the whatever very simple set was out in 1977.
Basic.
It was basic.
Red box.
77. It was a red box because
we know.
Yeah, we do know.
All of us at it.
Anyway, so I played that, and I played through high school, middle school, high school, college. In grad school, I was the GM for a long game that many people joined. Lots of fun. It was a great way to relieve the eternal stress of grad school. And we had lots of fun. But since I was in grad school from 91 to 93, but since then I did not play at all until I met Les. So that was a fortuitous meeting. There's a lot of history there. Anyway, I want to do something simple, and all of this contends on my daughter, who's age 2, allowing me time, because she is a night owl like me. So I always show up late, and you can't really show up late to a game that you're the GM of. So you got to be on time and ready. So when my daughter is older, I'll be more consistent as a gamer and perhaps a GM. Anyway, but my goal is to have lots of fun. So I want to run a simple campaign, lots of fun. I'm most familiar with 1E, but I'm not going to subject people to 1E. I'm going to try to get really efficient with Pathfinder 2 and Roll20, and I'll probably run it very simple fun adventure, simple stuff like a haunted ruin with, you know, a hidden door and catacombs. It's a good old fashioned dungeon crawl. Bring your thief, bring your wizard and cleric for sure, and just a good old fashioned goal to have fun game. And that's my goal. Will that happen this year? Maybe. It really depends on my family situation.
Okay, sounds good. That sounds like a good time. I agree with you. Probably not great to subject new players to first edition, but there's a lot to there. A good old fashioned dungeon crawl with all of the things. I think it's a great introduction to the game. Thank you, Eric. Next up, who may have something a little bit different in mind is Matt Meadow. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Matt Meadow. I'm 5'9" in good shoes. I like to walk on the beach. No, hi guys. So I've been playing
Yeah,
since the late. I've been playing since the late '70s as well, and I started like most people here with D&D, but then I also played Fantasy Trip and Tunnels and Trolls and whatnot. And I played pretty much all the way through like 2007, 2008 on a fairly consistent basis, and then fell out of it for several years. And until I ran into Les and I have been working together for several years, until we don't have like a secret handshake or something, you know, that each other are gamers. So with the conversation where I said that I just met Steve Jackson, and he's like, "Oh wait, I got Gary Gax's mail or whatever," you know, like so. That's how I joined his game. And like, was it 2013 or 2014, something like that?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So, but my path of RPGs differs, I think, from some of the group is that I was a lot more into the indie stuff, and I still am. You know, like I played everything there was: Ars Magic and Prince Valiant, all the Palladium stuff, Rift Wars, Chill, Bushido. But I was especially fond of Call of Cthulhu, and Les was generous enough to give me the Call of Cthulhu books to take a look at via PDF, and I'm happy to run that in a later time. But after reading through them again, I'm like, this is a little bit more commitment than I can take on just in terms of all the stuff that's there. So I'm going to run an indie game called Trophy Gold. There's a lot of the indie market really opened up recently. So I was at a store today just looking at all the drilling all of the stuff that's there. So this is going to be a little bit more simplistic rules. What I like about it is the character sheets are online, both the action stuff is online. It's a pretty simple like turn order kind of thing what you can do. You can change out the settings. I have a setting that's going to be a little more less fantasy, more like, well, there will be definitely some fantasy elements in it, but more of a historical feel to it, maybe, and it'll be more of a heist type thing than a dungeon leap. So the end result is the same big pile of treasure somewhere, but we're going to take a different setting. And the Trophy Gold is interesting because there's not a monster manual to look at, right? I'm just as you meet the monsters, you're gonna have them describe you, and everybody's gonna have a job on that team, right? One of them's gonna be the beast keeper, keeping track of the monsters you run into, and you got to populate the things you know about them as you go along, so that over time you'll be able to talk to the people, and maybe get clues about different monsters that are in the area and whatnot. So that you can start populating like your own monster manual and what these are and what their skills are and whatnot. So, say a little D&D, little Call of Cthulhu, little Indiana Jones.
All right, that sounds great. I'm very curious to see how this Trophy Gold rule set works out, and what it entails. I'm very curious.
It's like I said, you guys can look it up. It's Powered by the Apocalypse is the framework it's set on. So I think there's another player or another DM is going to be using that same framework, but it's its own set of rules. And like I said, it's relatively simple and something I can handle. I am a huge fan of Les's random tables, and that's something I want to bring into my games. So I wanted something I could have a lot of random tables, so it's less prep and more free flow in some of the areas of go. So I have a general idea where we're going to go and what the end result is, but there'll be also plenty of random table to see what this film tells your characters. One of Les's favorite things, my favorite thing with Les is when he does a skill challenge, which usually ends terribly for us, but it's still hilarious each time.
All right, well, that sounds great.
That's
Tom, All right. Thank you, Matt. That sounds awesome. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that Trophy Gold campaign. Tom Vilot, I know we have you on mute. I apologize for that. Are you still there?
Yes, Les, I'm still here.
Oh,
I have
beautiful.
no
All right.
comment here. I was having a
Fantastic.
little connection interruptions earlier, but it seems to have passed, so that's good.
All
All
right.
right, so hi, I'm Tom. Moved to St. Louis a couple years ago and ran into Les through historical miniatures. But I play basically any kind of game you put in front of me. Um, I have been doing war games, board games, role playing games since I was like 7, and my parents introduced me to it. Um, and I also work in professional wargaming for the Department of Defense. So you might say I have maybe I'm a little bit overqualified, but what I'm going to bring to you today. So our previous you know I forget his name. I'm sorry, Les. Who's the last guy who was just talking?
Matt.
That was
Matt.
Matt.
Yeah. So Matt talked about Powered by the Apocalypse system. So I'm a huge fan of the Powered by the Apocalypse system. What I'm going to be running kind of follows that. And since we talked a lot about like Pathfinder and D&D, it's kind of useful to talk a little bit about what the big difference is between um, Powered by the Apocalypse games and the sort of traditional like Pathfinder D&D framework is. So, the big deal with Powered by the Apocalypse is that it is what they call a narrative first rules. So it is much less prescriptive as to, things like how much your character can carry, how far you can move, right? It is much more narrative, right? Things are much more geared towards like theater of the mind, that sort of thing. And they're also a lot more simple. So character creation is very fast. It is hard to sort of truly min max because really what you're doing is just putting points into a dozen ish broad sort of skills where you are going to be strong in some places and weak in others, and that is kind of how it is. Um, the particular system I'm running is called Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark originally was written as a sort of kind of gritty, kind of gangster style thing with kind of occult elements, sort of in a kind of steampunk or diesel punk, like kind of gothic horror setting. And I have made some modifications to run it as a sort of an espionage game. So the players are all going to be, spies in some kind of conflict. We'll get to that in a second. But the idea is that the sort of basic mechanic for um, any check is that you will, based on your skills and circumstances, get a number of dice, and you roll them and pick the highest one, and that tells you whether you basically succeeded, failed, or succeeded with some complication. And that's kind of the basic mode of all the Powered by the Apocalypse games. Sort of one way or another, you get to this sort of success, failure, or failure with cost state. Blades in the Dark in particular, because it is in that kind of narrative first genre, has a lot of meta currencies like your stress or your money that's kind of is collectively held by your group, or time that is spent in these kind of downtime sessions. And all of these are things that you can spend basically to retroactively say, oh, we prepared this, for example. So like there's a very big kind of flashback mechanic. And this means that there is a lot less time spent sort of haggling over preparations and much more time spent like doing things in the moment, right? And kind of picking up things as you sort of need them. The setting that I have considered that I would like to run is circles around the the Meiji Restoration in Japan, right? A sort of fictionalized and magic occultized version of events. For those of you who don't know, right, I do a lot of my wargaming is about the sort of Japanese samurai period. And so I know quite a bit about the sort of circumstances around that and the kind of later parts of the period. So the idea is that you would be spies of the pro-imperial factions in Kyoto, the capital of Japan, or of the shogunate Japan, as it is at the time, right? And you would be trying to dodge the agents of the government, the Shinsengumi, who are tasked basically with keeping public order and killing people like you. As well as dealing with the various kind of weird occult things and your relationship to the various foreigners who may or may not have your best interests, even though you kind of need their help, right? So it's kind of a complex intrigue game where you can expect, and this is kind of another feature of the Powered by the Apocalypse system. You can kind of expect a lot of the times there to be less kind of combat and a lot more talking your way out of things and or sneaking around trying to do different things. And a lot of the Powered by the Apocalypse systems kind of weight all of the parts of the system evenly, compared to Pathfinder D&D's kind of focus on combat effects, that sort of thing, that kind of comes out of their origin as an addendum to miniature war games, right? And then D&D and all of its sort of offspring have never really lost that character. And so, this is going to be a campaign which is much more about talking your way out of things, sneaking around, trying to, evaluate who is a friend and who is a foe. And if it comes to fighting, things can get bloody and deadly very fast. So you want to be, careful about that. The injury system in this game is a lot less forgiving than it is in D&D.
Well, Tom, that sounds fantastic. That sounds like it's going to be a great game. I've played in some of your Meiji Restoration Samurai war games. They're always fantastic. Your knowledge of that time and culture is comprehensive. So, and that always makes those games better. So, I think this is the perfect game for you to bring to this group. So that said, those are going to be our 4 new games coming forward. I will provide within reason contact information for both myself, Mike, Don, and Matt, Eric, Tom, and Doug, so that you can, as a prospective player, you can reach out to them directly. We'll also be having more meetings and more calls like this where we talk about some of the basic needs that you'll have to that you'll need to begin playing these games. We'll talk a little bit about how to use Roll20, for example, as a player. Roll20 being the online platform through which these games are played, so that people don't have to be in the same room. We'll talk about things like basic role-playing game sort of parameters, like how to create a character, what makes a good character, what the guys were talking about when, for example, Don talked about a 3-action economy. What does that mean? What your characters can do and how powers and skills and spells and prowess sort of accrue to you. We'll have calls that deal with those kind of subjects as well. But in the meantime, does anybody here sort of have any questions or anything like that that they'd like to ask this group before we retire for the evening?
Yeah, so real quick question. I came in late. John here. So we're doing Curse of Strahd with PF2 rules?
That's correct. I'll be running once we bring Quarantine the Classics to Denouement. That will be the new campaign that I'm running. Yeah, Curse of Strahd, using Pathfinder second edition.
Roger that. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? All right. For those of you who have questions and are not on the call, please feel free to send me those questions. I will get them and put you in contact with the right person if I can't answer them myself. Don't feel like there's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to this. Ultimately, we all want the same thing. We want you guys who are out there watching this to play in these games and have the kind of fun that many of us here have enjoyed for the last 45 to 50 years.
Yeah,
and join us. We have a great time. I think you will too. And we hope to see you sometime this fall joining in our games.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Les.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
everyone.
Les.
Have a
Good
great
night,
week.
John.
Good night.
You too. Nice seeing you guys.
Night, night.
Guys.